Alright guys, welcome back. We're with a new video today, and today we're going to bring you a video on the Montana, the Tier 10 US battleship. Might do a couple of these, just highlighting the different Tier 10 battleships in the game. And today we're going to start with one of the most solid entries to the battleship lineup, and that is, of course, the Montana. This ship is a remarkably well-rounded battleship, and I would easily argue the most well-rounded in terms of balance of guns and armor and everything else, like the whole package you can get in the game. The Montana, it's of course one of the older ships in the game. It's not actually a ship that was ever built in real life. It's one of the only paper ships the U.S. Has. The Montana was a design study that was kind of competing with the Iowa class at the time, and the U.S. of course chose the faster Iowa class that was a little thinner and could fit through the Panama Canal, whereas I believe the Montana class wasn't going to be able to do that, so that's where they went with. But essentially, it's a bigger, wider Iowa with a fourth gun turret. Is the very simplistic way of looking at it. In terms of the end game, the ship is balanced about as well rounded as you can get. The Montana has a very solid entry in terms of size and speed, maneuverability. The gun power is very accurate gunfire, but Montana does lack some of the higher caliber gun options that a lot of ships get in this game. By tier 10, a lot of ships like Kurfürst are rocking 420s and 431 with Republic, and you can get up to 457 with ships like Conqueror and the new Russian battleships that are coming out soon. And then of course you have the 460 millimeter guns with Yamato, which are able to overmatch battleship armor on the nose and stern. But of course, the Montana only sticks with the 16-inch or 406 millimeter guns, and that can be a bit of a detriment. But she makes up for that with having 12 of them and also having a very accurate dispersion grouping for a tier 10 battleship. So this ship does have that issue going for it as far as the accuracy goes, but there is a drawback to being that as with 16-inch guns, even a couple cruisers and all battleships can battle tank you, meaning they can point their nose at you and your shells aren't really able to like overmatch them. So ships like Moskva, Des Moines, Salem can kind of get away with that. But you make up for it with having a tremendously accurate salvo. When of course you're not shooting it into an island as I'm doing here. I'm not sure what I was thinking on that salvo. I just kind of spaced out. We had that early shot on the Neptune, which is more of a guess. And then that shot there, which was just me being a potato. And you see our AA guns going to town right now as the enemy aircraft carrier does drop us. This is a double aircraft carrier game, but they're both tier 8s, you see. Otherwise, a mostly tier 8 through tier 10 game. The Montana's AA is quite good, keeping with the U.S. tradition of having really good aircraft guns. The Montana's AA is excellent. Now, this build here you're seeing is just a typical battleship build, very zombie battleship. You take Superintendent for the extra heal, you take Concealment Expert, Fire Prevention. So we're not playing it in an anti-aircraft build. A lot of people play the ship in an AA build, and it is fantastic when you play it like that as far as protecting yourself from AA or from planes, obviously. I don't choose to play the ship like that because I'm not sold on AA battleships being effective in this game. I feel like if you don't have defensive fire for AA, then you're just more inconveniencing an aircraft carrier. If carriers could be deplaned like they used to be able to, I would still believe in it. But the fact of the matter is, if a CV wants to strike you at tier 10, they're going to be able to do that, even if you're building like nearly full AA. They can dodge your flak and get enough for at least one drop. So without defensive fire for AA to make up the damage difference, I don't know. I've just never had a lot of luck with it. And a lot of times what happens is you either don't get an aircraft carrier game and your build's mostly useless because the U.S. ships don't have great secondaries, so you don't even get that benefit with BFT, AFT. And you also can have a situation where an aircraft carrier player, if they're good, realizes you're in a full AA build and they go, all right, well, we're just not going to strike you. And then, you're basically selling out three-quarters of your build for not being attacked by an aircraft carrier sometimes. So I just don't think the carriers are effective enough against battleships right now anyway to really warrant full AA builds. But if you want to do it, this ship would absolutely do it. So in terms of that, the Montana can be a very effective AA ship, but really this ship is at home as a support ship, medium range ship. She doesn't have the armor to get in close. The ship does not have a turtleback armor scheme, so the ship actually has one of the most exposed citadels at tier 10, with the exception of like Yamato. So in her armor scheme overall is just okay. It's 32 millimeters on the front and back, and 38 millimeters on the deck up under the superstructure, meaning that you'll shatter a little bit of tier 10 HE like some of the lower caliber destroyers, but you're going to eat a decent amount of HE damage on the ship, and you're also going to have the issue of having that exposed citadel, meaning if you give broadside in the ship, you can be significantly punished. Unlike ships like maybe a Kurfürst or a Conqueror, where you either have that ridiculous armor surrounding the citadel or just have a citadel underwater that can't be hit. The ship is much more punishing when you do give broadside, because you can eat a couple citadels of unrepairable damage, which can be pretty devastating. So when you're playing the ship, you have to be very careful about how you when and how you turn. So for example, if you remember just a minute ago when I made that turn, I used that island the Musashi's near to make my turn where I wasn't as exposed to the enemy battleships, where I can make the turn kind of in safety, and then next time the battleships could shoot me over the island, I was already angled away. So anyway, getting into the gameplay itself here, we're at the C cap right now. Obviously, we didn't have it early on, but we were allowed to. We pushed up enough and gave our Shimakaze enough cover where he could get in there and get the cap for our team. A couple battleships over here. I'm already turned around and I'm kind of moving back towards the middle of the map. Our team's really spread out in this game. We have some ships at A, we have some ships at B, we have a couple ships here at C, and I don't want to be too close to the flanks, because with aircraft carriers, even at tier 8s versus a tier 10, I don't really want to deal with that. I want to kind of group up if I can with my team, and I want to kind of get back towards the middle of the map, because if you're ever wondering where you should kind of go in the middle of the game, moving back towards the middle is never really a bad thing, because you can respond to threats better wherever like the enemy team starts maybe flowing, and just playing the flank like this, if you go around there and there's only one ship over there or something, I don't want to fight a Montana with an aircraft carrier dropping me and not having any other support. And there's really not much out there right now. We have the C cap, we don't have A and B, so I'm simply going to flow to wherever the enemy team is currently holding caps and try to help, get them back for our teams. It's what you're supposed to do. We have a Neptune out here at 13k, and that's one of the few cruisers you actually can overmatch with these guns. So we're going to try to take this guy out of the fight, but our dispersion doesn't really cooperate, and we get kind of that rough dispersion. You'll still get that, even with the 11% dispersion improvement on this ship, and its base accuracy being very good. Sometimes you just get those battleship salvos, and it just spreads out, and it looks like your gunner shot the shells with their feet, and that's what happens. So it's a little frustrating at times. We're going to get another shot on this Neptune. It looks like he's smoking up, so we know he's slowing down. So we're going to aim pretty much right at his nose. It looks like he was turned a little bit to like his left, our right. But we do get a Citadel through the nose. We get 3 normal pins and an overpin. That's a huge chunk of damage, and that guy is going to be significantly hampered for a little bit into this fight. So we're heading back towards B. Now, we know the Neptune probably can't torpedo us unless he turns in that smoke, but we should be able to outrun any torpedoes he has a chance to launch. We have Montana and Iowa, or Kurfürst and Iowa over here, and we are heading towards B. Now, we know B just got capped a minute ago, so the likelihood of a destroyer somewhere in B is kind of high. Now, I'm going to kind of take an educated, or I guess the term would be a calculated risk here. I'm giving some broadside of this Kurfürst in Iowa, which again is probably not very good, but I had to get around this island here to my right. And sailing through this gap that I'm going through. So you see this gap after I shoot this shot here at Kurfürst. There's that gap right there I'm looking at. That's a potential problem for torpedoes. So if a destroyer was sitting there, he could easily torpedo our broadside, and we'd be in a world of hurt. So I kind of rolled the dice here, because you look at the score, our team's already down 2 more ships than them. We're down almost 200 to 300 points, and I really wanted to get our team back in this fight as quick as I could and try to get over there with them and get into Bravo. I don't want to directly push into Bravo from right here, but I want to try to meet up with the rest of my team. It's kind of consolidated between A and B. So I kind of took a chance just sailing through here. I was aware that I could have been torpedoed, but fortunately for us, doesn't look like any torpedoes are incoming. So we're going to try to sail over our team as fast as we can. Now, the Montana has a pretty good speed on the ship. It's not a rocket, but your top speed is about 27 or so knots, 28 knots. It's got enough speed to definitely get out of its own way, and you can reposition in the ship like we're doing here, repositioning from C to B, without being overly punished, which is really nice. It doesn't have like that Republic speed where you can just fly all over the map, but it definitely has enough speed where if you want to get back to your team or something, you can do that. Now, I slowed down here a little bit to try to get a shot on that Neptune, but I realized I'm not going to be able to get a shot on him. So we're going to go ahead and take one more shot at this Iowa and then disappear behind the island. Now, that Iowa's bow on to us, so with these 16-inch guns, they're not going to be able to overmatch Iowa's bow armor, which is 32 millimeters, like every battleship's at tier 8 and above is, and we're going to get a bunch of shatters and bounces, which is to be expected. Didn't have time to switch to HE. We do have the Admiral Halsey on the ship, which is why we have red tracers. And if we would have had a couple more seconds, I would have switched to HE with that 7-second expert loader switch, and then shot HE at him, being nose on like that. But Didn't have time. Just shot what was in the guns. Maybe get some lucky pins. Maybe you don't. Not the end of the world. So now we kind of see a little bit of a clear battle line. Our team has taken care of A. We have a Harguma and Alaska coming out of A. We have a Republic and a Montana up here in Bravo. So now that our team's kind of grouped together a little bit, now we can kind of turn and get back into this fight a little bit more. We're at 63,000 damage with 14 aircraft shot down and over 1.5 million potential damage tanked. And this game is about to pick up in a pretty quick way here. So we're going to be turning into Bravo. I want to kind of push with this other Montana, but I don't want to get too crazy. We know there's destroyers around. We know there's a couple battleships over here. I'm loading HE to shoot at this Grozer Kerr first because he's bow on to me. Maybe get a fire. It's important in an aircraft carrier game, or especially a double aircraft carrier game, if you can start a fire or two, they're going to often stick. Because either A, people are going to repair your fire and then take fires and floods from the aircraft carriers, or they're going to be repairing fires and floods from the aircraft carriers, and oftentimes you can get a fire or two to stick, and that's always just nice damage to have rolling. Yeah, it's healable, but every bit helps, and it's nice to be able to get a little bit of extra damage. So we got a Wichita hanging out here, and I thought he was going to accelerate. I figured he would accelerate behind that island to get away from our other Montana, but he backed up instead, of course, and he only eats one full pin and manages to dodge most of that damage. Kind of just I should have probably held that shot like another second to see what he was doing, but I just kind of assumed he was going to accelerate, so missed shot on my part. And we might get a second chance. It looks like now he is accelerating, as I thought he was going to do in the first place, and turning away. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my attention to this Iowa, who I guess grounded in front of us. I'm not really sure what this guy did. He, like, crossed here, and he either hit the curve first or hit an island or something, and he just stopped broadside, like, right in front of us. So we've slowed our speed down to almost nothing, because we have our Montana, which is over there to my left, who's getting lit up by, like, their whole team. But I've got a pretty good angle against this Kerr first in Iowa. I know there was an Akizuki somewhere over here to my right, and I know there's a Shimakaze hanging out somewhere on the other side. So I don't really want to get too crazy. See that Shimakaze has really briefly appeared in Charlie, and those are Shimakaze torps going after the Montana. See that wall of torps. So we take out Iowa with two quick salvos. The Iowa, just like the Montana, does not have good broadside armor. So you saw there, if you give broadside in a ship like this, that is something you can reasonably expect is a lot of citadels. And the Montana's guns have no problem punching through that armor at that kind of range. So as you see what that kid just did, don't do that, because it's what happens. We got a Kerr first here, still sitting nose onto us. We're going to shoot his upper deck, though. We have just enough time with our spotter plane to get that little increased angle on the shells. So we can drop some shells in the Kerr first deck, and at that kind of range, we actually get the shells to plunge into the deck and do full pin damage, and we get 4 full pins and overpin and do 13,000 or so damage, which is kind of nice. But we are going to go ahead and load HE, because like I said, we want to try to keep this guy on fire if we can. It just kind of helps our damage a little bit, and also helps our aircraft carriers damage. If we manage to get a guy on fire and he repairs it, then he eats some floods or something. Every little bit helps, and we see the aircraft carriers, was striking this guy, or they're aware of what he's doing. So Montana's HE is not exactly like flamethrower material. It's not Republic or Conquer HE, but oftentimes with 12 guns, one of them usually set a fire. So if you get a decent salvo like that where you get 8 shells hitting, usually you'll find at least a fire, despite the fire chance being kind of So we're kind of working on this Kerr first, but we're about to have some bigger things to worry about. I see this Montana moving left to right across my screen, and I'm kind of thinking he's probably going to be at least somewhat broadside. He shoots us in the nose, we bounce all his shells, but he's giving us kind of a broadside profile, so he's slowing down. We aim short and below his ship to try to get those shots on his broadside, and we try to put our back 2 guns that didn't shoot on the Kerr first, just to see, try to keep our guns firing at all times, because if you don't shoot your guns, you're not doing damage, obviously. So, but we just get bounced in the Kerr first. He turned away, so no big deal. So we're trying to take stock of the situation. We have a Neptune out there in smoke. We have a Shimakaze coming around. So we're going to go ahead and we had switched to HE because I saw the Shimakaze coming around. And if you ever get a chance to shoot HE at a destroyer, always do that. As a battleship, your AP damage is capped on how much damage it can do to destroyers. So if you have a chance like this here where I've got a second to shoot him, always try to get HE in your guns if you can. That's why I think Expert Loader is such a good talent for most of the battleships in the game, and Montana especially, and especially if you have Halsey with that improved Expert Loader, which is just a 7-second shell switch, or if you're just in the middle of reloading, and you think about it. But definitely want to always do that. So I'm going to load AP again, because now I see this Montana is coming in towards me, so I want to have the AP loaded for this kind of brawl. And we're going to kind of be careful with this. I'm taking a quick stock of my surroundings, make sure nothing's changed. And I'm going to go ahead and shoot this Montana, but I'm going to hold my fire. Watch what I'm doing here. We're not shooting yet, because I know he has to turn. He has to turn to go behind this island. So I'm going to wait as long as I can for him to make that turn. So when the shells hit him, see that turn he's making right now, and he's opening that profile to me, we get 15,000 damage. Now he gets a god tier dispersion in return, and he gets 22,000 damage on our angled armor right there, which is pretty brutal. But not the end of the world here, as the ship is tanky enough to take a couple shots like that. But now we got to think. We got a Curve First out here. We got a Montana pushing around this island, and we have a Shimakaze off to our left. So we got to be careful. I'm going to accelerate some because I want to try to get a little better angle on this opening to my left. For now, I'm going to shoot the curve first. I know I've got a minute before Montana comes around. We see him right now. He's only about halfway through this island. We know this guy's going to come through that inlet to the left of the big island right there. We know that's what he's going to do. But curve first is farming my Republic. Could be farming my CV. So I'm going to try to help that kill that curve first. We get 13,000 damage on him. Of course, we're not going to Citadel him even if he's broadside because he's a curve first. But we can still do some pretty meaningful heavy damage to him. And we've got one more reload, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot this shot because I want to get this guy out of the fight before he heals. And then I've got to get my guns ready for the Montana. I'm not going to have time to do anything else. We're also slowing down because I don't want to have to deal with the Shimakaze. If he comes around from, say, the 6 or 7 line, you see he's on the mini-map right now near our cruiser. I don't want to have to deal with that guy's torpedoes if he comes around. But we're going to go ahead and pre-aim at this Montana. We know this guy's going to want to come through here. He's either going to have to sail past the inlet or he's going to sail into it. So in this case, we're going to shoot as fast as we can. As soon as we think we can get a shot, we're going to shoot him immediately. Because if we wait, this guy's going to change. His angle is going to turn into us, and we're not going to be able to get that Citadel damage. Because we're going to hit that big 410 millimeter armor belt that's on the side of Montana. But we don't hit it. We get a couple Citadels, and we do over 40,000 damage and take him out of the fight. So we've taken care of the curve first, we've taken care of the Montana, and now we only pretty much have the Shimakaze left to worry about. So we're going to go ahead and turn away. We're going to eat these 2 torpedoes from the aircraft carrier, which is unfortunate. Not the end of the world. Montana has a decent torpedo belt. I believe it's like 37%. It's not amazing, and it's definitely not historically accurate. This ship should have had a monster armor belt because all the U.S. battleships were very torpedo resistant in the wars, I guess. But I guess for the balancing purposes of the game, they decided to give her like a 30-something% armor belt, but it's enough, as long as you're taking the shots on the side there and not taking them on the bow or stern. So we're turning away and we're loading HE, because like I said, anytime you have a chance to load HE against a destroyer in a battleship, you want to do it. The only exception I would say is probably Yamato and Musashi. Probably don't need to worry about it. Probably better off just shooting. AP all the time because there's the raw alpha. Those guns are so high. The aircraft carrier gets 3 drops off with his torpedo bombers, which is really lame. Kind of the downside of not having the full anti-aircraft bill is even tier 8 aircraft, they know what they're doing, can strike you. And as we expected, the Shimakaze has appeared to our rear here, and now he's working on the other Shimakaze here. And we're doing a little bit of damage here. We do manage to get Confederate and high caliber out of this fight. Before he shoots his torpedoes, but we just make a bit of a play mistake here at the end. We overcommit slightly to the turn, and now we're going to eat both these torpedoes here. I was trying to make sure maybe we killed our other Shimakaze. He didn't kill our Shimakaze, but it was kind of unnecessary just to take these 2 torpedoes, and unfortunately we are going to be killed. Which sucks because that was just a pure misplay on our part. There was no reason to do it, but oh well. Still, we managed to pull out a 209,000 damage game with 40 aircraft shot down. Confederate high caliber, only 1 kill, but our Alaska did pick up 5, so it was kind of where some of those kills went. But we could have had 1 or 2 more, but I'm not worried about kills. I'm worried about getting wins, and that's what we're going to get in this game. Despite our Shimakaze going down, we're up in points and we're up in caps, and only thing we have left is 2 aircraft carriers. So with sub 2 minutes to go, there's no way they're going to kill a tier 10 ship as 2 tier 8 aircraft carriers and get caps and come back and win the game. So that's what we're going to wind up with here. So overall, like I said, the ship's very solid. We tanked almost 3 million potential damage, just being smart with angling our armor, not giving too much broadside, and using both our shell types to set a couple fires. But mostly just using our accuracy and using our maneuverability to stay in good positions in the game, and letting our AA kind of do its work there. And overall, just had a really solid game top to bottom. So if you're looking for a very solid ship in this meta, I do recommend the ship highly. It's a very solid ship top to bottom. The combination of AA and accurate guns, where you're playing a meta with a lot of cruisers and whatnot, makes it a pretty solid ship to use when it comes to that. And like I said, if you want to build it for AA, which carriers obviously aren't going anywhere. They're about to put more premium carriers in the game in addition to the British line. Um, they're not going anywhere. So if you want to build full AA, the ship is a monster with full AA. If they're actually, striking you over and over, like I said, I would always be cautious with the issue of, matchmaking, maybe not giving you aircraft carriers, or it's only one and they decide not to come to your side of the map, or they realize you're an AA monster and they just stay away from you the whole game. I would rather just take 40 aircraft shot down and just play with a full solid battleship build than shoot down 75 aircraft in a full AA build and not have my fire prevention, not have my concealment, not have my superintendent, things like that. So, anyway, guys, that's what I got for you today. Thanks for watching and have a good one.